So I'm always saying you should track everything. Track your feedings, your growth, when your animals go off feed, if the humidity, the heat, all that stuff. Well, today I'm going to share with you 5 animals that were growing up from their juvenile stage through their subadult stage. And so just to serve as a reference, let me know what you think. How's it going, guys? Paul, Spheric Reptiles, and I thank you so much for tuning in today. Hopefully this is a short video, but I hope that this is something you can use. That's the main focus of Spheric Reptiles and our YouTube platform. It's just putting out information that is helpful to you as a new breeder, or if you're an existing breeder, something that you can add on. And of course, anything that you see that I'm doing, let me know, because I'm always looking to improve upon how I care for my animals. So whether it's feeding them and them growing, and then when I titrate them off their food and tailor them down to a less of a feeding frequency, that's something that I'm always interested in, because I want all of these animals to live the longest possible happy life in a snake form that they can. With your ball pythons, you don't want to overfeed them, nor do you want to underfeed them. So providing them the correct amount of rodents and the size of rodents for them to grow at their optimal level will be great. So in this video, again, I'm gonna have charts, I'm gonna show you snakes, I'm gonna do all that stuff like I always do. But the most important thing is I want you to use these as a baseline, as a reference, because I came up with this video because when I looked across the internet, I only saw a couple of these type of videos on a social media platform. So, and it's different if you go to a textbook or you go to an actual reference, but having something that you can just play on the TV, I'm hoping that this video can help you. Looking at the screen, you see Athena. Athena's a fire yellow belly that's heifer pied. She was born February 2024. We purchased her in July of 2024 of that same year from some friends of ours. She started off with an initial weight of 238 grams. And by the end of last year, 2025, she was 1,174 grams. So, man, this is a tremendous amount of gain. So how much did she actually gain? So the way that I'm looking at this is per month, because we do our weights every month. So it might be right at the beginning of the month, or it might be a week into the month, but either way, make sure you're getting those weights. So when we looked at those weights, as I put this up on the screen again, you see that she gained 936 grams in 17 months. So that is 55.06 grams that she gained per month. Now, it's important for me to note before I even go any further, we feed our females. After 100 grams, we feed them rat pups. If they'll take frozen thawed rat pups, they get that, but we feed them rat pups. And then around maybe 300 to 400 grams, then we switch them over to a wean rat if it's on the smaller side. And when they get above 700 to 800 grams, we go ahead and we switch them to small rats. Now, a small rat isn't a jumbo rat, so we're looking at incremental changes, but what we found is that this encourages them to continue to grow. And we're feeding them once a week at the same time, if we try, every week. So for her to get this linear growth curve, and I'll put it on the screen again, and get that 55.06 grams that she gained per month, then that was because of the way that we fed her. Now, this is an animal that we purchased. Now let's look at another animal that we purchased. This is Rihanna, and she is a Cypress het clown that we purchased at a reptile show from a good friend of ours. You notice the thing, we always try to buy from people that we trust. So whether it's a social media, whether they've been in the game for a while, or if it's someone that we personally know. But if you look at the screen here, you can see her and just how pretty she is. She was born on September 2024, and we purchased her in December of 2024. Now, looking at this chart on the screen, you'll see how much she grows. And check out the linear growth on her. So starting out, she was 138 grams. And then by the end of last year, or December 2025, she had reached 1,042 grams. Now, that's still a lot, guys. If you think about it, going from, and I got my chart over here, going from 138 grams to 1,042 grams is phenomenal. And then if we also check it out, as I put it back on the screen, she gained 904 grams in 13 months, and that equals 69.54 grams a month. and we didn't power feed her. She got 1 meal a week, starting off with those rat pups, and around 400 grams, we switched her over to wean rats once a week. And then once she got to 800 grams, we just started giving her small rodents. Now, we are giving frozen thawed rodents to her, but she will take a live, but we really try to push that frozen thawed unless one of our live feeders, because inevitably you will have some that only eat live, she will take that as well. But for our animals that are growing consistently, we don't want to change up that plan or the feeding that we're already doing. So keeping them on frozen thawed is more economical for us since we don't breed our own rodents. But if you breed your own rodents, you know, it's still a size thing. So we didn't notice any of these animals going off of food. In fact, since we started feeding them at this rate and at the size, our females are not going off of food, because what we figure is they're getting a complete BM, bowel movement, for y'all who don't know. And so before we feed them again, that's important for us to see that bowel movement before we give them another prey item to eat, because I don't want to add to a backlog in there in case she's constipated and she needs, what kind of medicine is that? X-Lax or something like that, which there is no X-Lax for snakes. They just have to get it out. So normally, if you're noticing that your animals aren't having BMs or if they're not defecating frequently after a meal, so I'm saying after 4 to 5 days after they eat, then you might want to soak them in some water to make sure that they're not dehydrated. You might want to check your humidities and your temperatures to make sure that they're not too low. You definitely want to check to make sure that they're not too high, because that can cause a different issue. If your animal's soaking in water for longer than a week, then you might want to remove that bowl and put in a smaller bowl so that they don't have to just soak there, because inevitably all of these things that are not good for their husbandry will affect their feeding habits, and it'll affect their poop habits. And, you know, as they bring in, they got to put it out. The first animal was 55.06 and the second animal was 69.54. So that's still a lot. So I'm saying one of them's like 14 grams more than the other one. So that means that the first Athena, when we got her, she did skip some meals just in the transition. Rihanna was definitely more active. Like Rihanna, the entertainer, was more active than Athena. Well, Athena, I don't know how active she was, because I don't know if she ever really existed. So, you know, but now if we go into Twix, Twix is an animal that we hatched out ourselves, and she is a spot-nosed clown. She was born in September of 2024, and, you know, she started off big. So her dad was Bruce Wayne. Bruce Wayne is a massive male ball python. He's over 1,800 grams and he's slim. And his mom is Medusa, our 14-year-old ball python, and she's massive as well. So I'm kind of figuring the theme there was they had big babies. So all of the babies were above 87 grams, which is the first time we've ever seen that. Now, if we look at her actual weights and what she gained, since October 2024, she was 154 grams. And by December of 2025, she was 1,338 grams. Man, that's a lot. That's a lot. But that first weight, 154 grams, let me know in the beginning that she was ready and she was going to grow. When I tried to cut her feeding down from when she started eating small rats down to wean rats, she would almost get at me coming out of the tub. Like, she was so food driven that I just said, you know, maybe this is what she needs. She was having the defecations and everything else. So I just kept feeding her the small rats. And then on this last weight, we saw that she was 1,338. Now, a lot of y'all might be thinking she's ready to breed, but no, she's not old enough. She's only 1.5 years. So at 1.5 years, I don't think that she's ready. Now, in the wild, the males would definitely test her and she might even accept them. But for us as Spheric Reptiles, I want for our animals to be mature adults. Now, just because she's a fast grower doesn't mean that she's ready. So that's one thing you can look at. And then when I've checked her follicles are just not there because she's just not old enough. She's just a big teenager, I guess. You know, she's a big sub-adult. So, you know, if we think about how much she's gained, man, she had that 1184 in 16 months, and that led to 74 grams per month that she was putting on. That's retaining so much from each prey that it's only can show that she was growing very fast. Now, if an animal is not growing fast and they don't need the nutrients, they'll have larger poops. If they are using and absorbing all of the nutrients with the exception of the fur, then they would have smaller poops. So her poops are consistently smaller. And she always has the urates that are stuck to the side, but the actual fecal matter is definitely smaller, or the brown poop. I hate saying the word doo-doo, but the poop is a lot smaller when I'm cleaning up her tub versus anybody else's. Dookie. That's what I was told to say, dookie. It's so crazy. But anyway, all right, so y'all get what I'm saying. So the females, you know, so we have 55 to 74. So that's pretty big when it comes to actual growth. Now let's look at the boys. So we hatched out one and we bought one. So starting out with Dallas, Dallas is a blackhead that's double head for clown and pied. Of course, y'all know we have clown pieds. I just never know when we're going to be able to plug them in. So when we got this little guy, he was pretty small. In fact, he was a hatchling. So he was actually born in February 2024. We acquired him in October of 2024, and he had an initial weight when we got him of 96 grams. Now, y'all know how I feel about that. I want all the animals that we get to be above 100 grams, but he was so close. And when I talked to the seller, which was Spheric Reptiles, who has great quality animals, he had said he had already been feeding at 6 meals. So 6 meals without assist, I took a chance, and he's been good. He started out at 96 grams, and by the end of December 2025, he was up to 490 grams, which is a net of 394 grams. 394 grams in 14 months. And man, let me tell you, if you look at the screen again, just notice this linear graph, right? So he had 28.14 grams he gained per month. Now, his curve looks just like the female curves, with the exception of, with our males, we have a different feeding schedule. They only get 3.5 feet. I mean, unless it's a shack version, and then they'll top out around 4. Females, on the other hand, they get 5 to 6 feet. So, of course, they have a faster growth spurt during their juvenile to subadult phase. Now, once they reach that adult phase, they start slowing down. But during that first couple of years, they're growing, the females are growing, outgrowing the males so much. It's almost like how, you know, in high school, the males hit puberty, and then all of a sudden, all those girls that were taller, now they're shorter, and the guys are like 1.5 feet taller. The same thing goes on, but with the females. It's crazy. The males stay short in ball python world, and the females are always bigger. So, you know, this is what happens. But, you know, this is what we saw with Dallas, our blackhead, doublehead clown pied. What we saw is that he put on weight. As soon as he hit 100 grams, we fed him an adult mouse. We feed them adult mice up until the point to either they get to 400 grams, and then we'll go back and forth to rat pups to adult mice, rat pups to adult mice. And then once they get over 800, 900 grams, then we put them on weaned rats. With our males, we really don't push to feed them larger prey items since they don't get bigger. So we feel like their digestive systems are not as big and developed as the females, who definitely are getting twice their size in a lot of cases. So standing with that lower, that smaller prey item size is of a greater benefit. Digestive health is key for this male ball python. But again, we want to make sure that we're feeding them the right amount so that we don't stunt their growth, but we don't give them too much, right? So with him, you see again on the screen, 28.14 grams per month. And that's great for us because it's consistent growth. We didn't see hardly any disruptions, with a couple of times when he just refused food. And then, you know, but it happens. You're not going to have an animal, and you're not going to have all your animals in your collection just go straight through on their feeding schedule. So getting to the one that we hatched out, and this is Jupiter. He's a gravel head clown, and we hatched him out on 9/2024, and he weighed 46 grams. So December 2025, he weighed 546 grams. So, you know, starting off really small, 46 grams to 546 grams. That's a net of 500 grams. You know, that's some math I can do without even looking. But, you know, if we think about it, in 15 months, he actually gained 33.33 grams per month. So if we look at Dallas, who was at 25 and he's at 33, this kind of mirrors whenever we look at the data, because this is why we have the data. When we look at the data, we see that all our males are growing at the same rate, and they all reach adulthood or sexual maturity around the same time. So both of these animals are nearing sexual maturity. And in fact, they actually are starting to produce small amounts of sperm plugs, but they won't be ready to breed for us until they get to 700 grams or 800 grams, because we're actually tracking them the same way. If you watched the previous video, we're tracking them to be ready when the females are ready. So we have more males available for our options for the females that we have sexually mature. Now, it's a lot of information. To summarize all of this, what you're typically going to see, and I want y'all to let me know as well, because this is just a study that we're doing here and a couple of people that I know just from leading into this video. The males are going to grow at half the rate of the females. So it doesn't do you any good to think that you can feed your females a wean rat and your male a wean rat and your males will grow at the same rate as your females. Well, your females are getting a lot larger. They got a lot more responsibility, especially once they become adults. They'll be developing follicles. There's a lot more preparation that goes for the female ball pythons, just like in the human species, than it is for the male ball pythons. The only difference between the two is the males don't get muscle bound and anything else. They stay kind of slender and athletic, whereas the females actually get muscle bound and big. So as you're looking at your collection and you're feeding them, remember, it's that growth and that focus that you're doing, especially if you're planning on breeding your animals, or at least making sure that they're as healthy as they can be. Track those growth rates per month, weigh them every month, and then let me know how our data compares to your data. That's why I put the charts up so that you can screenshot them, you can refer back to them, save it for later, whatever you got to do. But the whole thing that I want you to do is I want you to be successful, and I want you to be able to track your animals. And at least this way you can compare what you're doing to what I'm doing. And, you know, if we can work it out, you know, if, like I said, if something is helping you, you let me know, like I'm letting you know how something that I'm doing could possibly help you as well. So if you like this content, guys, let me know by hitting that like button and that subscribe button. Comment, like I keep saying comment, because in this community, good advice is only from a summation of responses. So the more people that give input as to what they're seeing in their collection, the more likely it is that we can all do something that is of a greatest or the best benefit for these animals. So until next time, guys, enjoy that time that you spend with your reptiles, and the right snake will change your mind, and love the family that you have while you have them. Thank you.